Are you glued to learning new things every day? Welcome to Tell Me More, the channel in which you will find crazy facts about anything that you can imagine. Stay tuned. Throughout human history, societies have used punishment as a means of deterring crime and maintaining social order. But some of these methods of punishment have been inhumane, brutal, and have caused immense suffering to the people who were subjected to them. In this video, we will take a look at some of the most brutal and inhumane forms of punishment that have been used throughout history. From crucifixion and impalement to the Brazen Bull and Chinese water torture, these punishments will shock and disturb you. We will also discuss the historical context in which these punishments were used and the impact they had on society. So sit back and prepare to be horrified as we take a look at the 10 worst punishments in history. Now let's dive into it. 10. The punishment of crucifixion was a brutal and inhumane method of execution that was used by the ancient Romans. The condemned person would be tied or nailed to a large wooden cross and left to die of starvation, dehydration, and exposure. This punishment was reserved for criminals and slaves and was considered to be one of the most severe punishments in the Roman Empire. The process could last for days, and death was slow and painful. The condemned person would suffer from thirst, exhaustion, and exposure to the elements. They would also be subject to the jeers and insults of the crowd. 9. Impalement was a method of execution or torture in which a person was killed by being speared, staked, or skewered with a long, sharp pole, typically through the rectum, the vagina, or the base of the spine. This method of execution was used in many cultures throughout history, most notably in Eastern Europe and the Ottoman Empire, where it was particularly brutal and painful. It was considered a particularly cruel and slow method of execution, as the victim could take several days to die from their injuries. It was often used as a form of punishment for crimes such as treason, murder, or rebellion. 8. The punishment of boiling alive was used in medieval Europe as a punishment for crimes such as treason, witchcraft, and murder. The person would be placed in a large cauldron of boiling water or oil, suffering a slow and painful death. This method of execution was considered to be one of the most brutal and inhumane forms of punishment. It was meant to be a deterrent to others, and was often used to execute people who were considered to be a threat to the state or society. 7. The punishment of Scaphism, also known as the boats, was a Persian method of execution used in ancient times. The process would begin by force-feeding the condemned person a mixture of milk and honey, and then sealing them inside a small boat or a hollowed-out tree trunk. The person would be left in this confined space, unable to move, with no food or water. They would be exposed to the elements, and insects such as flies and beetles would be attracted to the mixture of milk and honey, crawling into the boat or tree trunk, biting and feeding on the person. The person would suffer from starvation, dehydration, and exposure to insects, and the process could take several days or even weeks before the person died. This punishment was considered particularly effective because it was slow and prolonged, causing immense suffering, and it was also meant to be a deterrent to others. The punishment of Scaphism was used mainly for political prisoners and people who were considered to be a threat to the state or society. 6. The punishment of the Iron Maiden was a medieval torture device that consisted of a large metal cabinet with spikes on the inside. The person would be placed inside the cabinet, and the spikes would impale them, causing a slow and painful death. Before we move further, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. 5. The punishment of the rack was a medieval European torture device that was used to extract confessions or information from prisoners. The rack was a large wooden frame that had a mechanism for stretching the person's body. The person would be tied to the frame with their hands and feet secured, and then the mechanism would be used to stretch their body, pulling their limbs in opposite directions. This would cause immense pain and could dislocate the person's joints, causing permanent injury. The rack was considered to be one of the most brutal and inhumane forms of torture, and was one of the most effective methods of extracting information from prisoners who were suspected of crimes such as treason, heresy, or witchcraft. The rack was commonly used to extract false confessions, as the pain and suffering caused by the rack would often break the person's will and make them confess to crimes they did not commit. 4. The blood eagle punishment was a method of execution practiced by the Vikings in the 9th and 10th centuries. It involved cutting the skin on the back of the victim, breaking the ribs to form eagle's wings, and pulling the lungs out through the wounds to create the appearance of an eagle's spread wings. It is not clear how common this punishment was, or how historical accounts of it should be interpreted, but it is generally considered to have been a rare and extreme form of execution reserved for particularly heinous crimes. 3. The punishment of drawing and quartering was used in medieval England for crimes such as treason and murder. The person would be tied to a horse and dragged through the streets, then hanged until almost dead, disemboweled, and then quartered. 2. The punishment of the Brazen Bull was an ancient Greek torture device that consisted of a large metal bull that was heated over a fire. The bull was made of bronze and was designed in such a way that it had a door that could be opened and closed, allowing the person to be locked inside. The person would be locked inside the bull, and it would then be heated over a fire and would be roasted to death as the bull became hotter and hotter. The Brazen Bull was invented by Perillos of Athens, a metalworker and engineer, who presented it to Phalaris, the tyrant of Acriga, Sicily, as a new means of executing criminals. It was said that the bull was designed to amplify the screams of the person inside, creating the illusion that the bull was bellowing. 1. The punishment of the Chinese water torture was a form of psychological and physical torture where the person was restrained and water was slowly dripped onto their forehead, causing them to feel like they were drowning. This punishment was used in ancient China and other parts of the world, mainly for political prisoners. The punishment of Chinese water torture, also known as waterboarding, is a form of psychological and physical torture in which the person is restrained and water is slowly dripped onto their forehead, causing them to feel like they are drowning. The person would be restrained and placed on a board with their head tilted backwards, and water would be dripped onto their forehead, creating the sensation of drowning, and they would struggle to breathe. It would also cause physical pain, as the constant dripping of water would cause irritation and discomfort. The punishment could last for hours or even days, and it was meant to break the person's will, forcing them to confess to crimes they did not commit or provide information they did not have. That's all. Hope you have enjoyed this video. Have you heard of any other techniques used in the past? Tell us in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, give the video a thumbs up, and turn on post notification so that you do not miss the upcoming videos. See you in the next one.